What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So for all my homies who got the LCI coupes, this is a clutch video for you. Let me give you guys some backstory before we head on into the install. So as a lot of you guys are well aware that I'm running this current Halo setup on my E46. And although it does look really nice and it matches the car really well, especially with the Halo rings, it gives it that classic BMW look. There's just a couple things that bother me about the Halo setup, and on top of that, it's not the ideal headlight setup I want for my car right now. So today, I'm going to be showing you guys how to install a fresh new pair of angel eyes on your E46. The process is almost exactly the same for any E46 out there. The only difference is for the LCI coupes, the headlight has to be baked for the front lens to come off for you to install the headlights. I know for the pre-LCIs, they're just held in by clips and you just pull it off, so it's much easier. So this video is going to be super clutch for the ones who own the LCI coupes, because I'm going to show exactly in detail on the process. But in terms of the wiring, where you get your power from, and the cable management is all the same between any E46. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and show you guys what I have planned for my headlights. So the first thing I went out and bought a brand new pair of lenses for my car, because the lenses I have on it right now are pretty faded out and they do have some scratches and dings on them. So I just went ahead and bought a new pair. I know these are actually super hard to find because I was searching for a really long time and I couldn't find them anywhere. And then finally a seller on eBay made them available. So I went ahead and picked these up as fast as I could. I'm just really hoping they fit on good because everyone knows with eBay stuff, fitment could be an issue sometimes. So I'm just hoping these fit on good and I'll keep you guys updated on that. So the main party piece is going to be the F-Series style angel light kit I picked up. I got this kit off AliExpress because I honestly couldn't find any other set anywhere else. On all the sets on eBay that were F-Series style, they didn't have as much color modes as this. And these were the highest quality ones I could find, honestly. On top of that, I also went ahead and picked up some LED turn signals just to update the front end a little bit and just make the whole headlight setup just look a bit newer. I also went ahead and picked up some nightshade. Some other things you're definitely going to need. You're going to need some sort of adhesive to make sure these stick on permanently and stay on the headlight housing. And on top of that, I also went ahead and picked up some butyl sealant. You can go ahead and pick up any sort of headlight sealant, but I went online and I searched that these do the best job and they're the easiest to apply. A pair of wire strippers is going to be super helpful as well, as we are going to deal with a bit of wiring. I also have some black paint that was just laying around in my garage because there's some silver parts in the headlight housing that I want to paint black as well. You will also definitely need a heat gun and just have your toolbox nice and ready for when you want to take out the headlights. And just real quick, before I go ahead and I swap out this angel setup, here's the main reason why I'm getting rid of the setup. So if you guys can see inside the car, I have it set on white, okay? So if you come to the front, it looks purple. That's because it is purple. So these set, they have a lot of discoloration issues, and over time it just gets worse and worse. So right now the whole ring is actually purple when it's supposed to be white. And if you see over here, it's like red. Over here, there's some discoloration. Come to this side, same issues happening. A bunch of discoloration over there. You can't really see too good on camera, but right there. So this is the main reason, and I'm not gonna lie, I did cheap out on the set. So in terms of quality, that's probably why it happened. So yeah, I just want to show you guys real quick as the reason why I'm swapping these out. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the install. All right, so before you go ahead and start the installation, it's really important to have a good general idea of how you want to wire this up. And there's three main points. The first point being, how do you want to power the Halo setup? The two best ways I found you could power these Halos, and the way I personally went for this setup that I have, my original setup, was that I just powered through the fog light. I just tap into the power line, bring a line up, and just wire it up here. That way it works too. The only issue with that is that these only turn on when the fog lights are on. The second option you guys have is that you can power it to the fuse box that's inside the engine bay. I've seen a lot of people do this, and the good thing for this is that as soon as you turn on the accessory, the Halos will turn on. And it's fairly simple because you just run through the top of the engine and it's just right here. Nice and simple. The second point is that how are you going to ground the Halo setup? So grounding the setup is fairly easy. You can basically just ground it almost on any bolt in the engine bay that's mounted straight to the chassis, and that should get the job done just fine. And the third point is where you want to have the controller sitting in the engine bay. So I already went ahead and started taking out my last setup because I just want to restart from scratch. But for my last setup, I just had it sitting right here, right in front of the washer fluid tank. And it doesn't really matter where it sits. It would be better if it sat on the cold side of the engine instead of the hot side of the engine, but I had this here for multiple summers and I had really no melting issues or anything. So in terms of that, you should be fine. Basically, all you really want to do is route it so it just looks nice and neat and it doesn't look too messy inside your engine bay. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead, remove the cabling from my last Halo setup, and then we'll get ahead and start this install. So to make a bit more room, I went ahead and I moved up the washer fluid tank. So it's just a 10mm bolt at the top. I moved it up and I held it on with a strap right here. I also went ahead and took off the top portion of the air scoop. So there's just 3 pulling tabs. Right here, another one right there. And then it literally just pops off and you pull it out from this intake scoop right here. And then now that you have the room, let's go ahead and start disassembling the headlights. So the first thing you want to do is take off this top seal right here. So there's a clip right here, another one right there. And then there's one more right there. And then there's one more right there. So you just push those in and then this whole thing just pulls out real quick. So now that you have that piece out, what you want to do next is take out this bottom trim piece that sits under the headlight. And depending on your E46 is equipped with the headlight washer system, it would sit right here. And then there's a little tab right there. I don't know if you can see it. It literally sits right there. You see where that hole is right there? If you stick a flat end in that, this will pop out. And then you just have to pop it out on this side too. There's a little tab. So now that you see, this bottom trim is off. And for the people whose cars are equipped with the headlight washers, basically, you have to unclip it from both sides, pull it out a little bit, and then the headlight washer system is held in by 2 hinges right here. And then once you undo those, the system just comes out. And then most likely, depending on how you do it, it might start leaking. So you want to plug the hose that's connected to it. So now after that's out, you want to grab an 8mm socket. There's a bolt right there. There's 2 on the top right here. And then there's also in that crevice right there, there's another one. You could also use a Torx bit for those, but I feel like the 8mm is just easier. So now you want to get those bolts out. So now that the bolts are out, just go ahead and take off the cap for this, because that's when you start pulling out the headlight. This is going to get in the way, so you just want to pull this out. So there's a tab right here, push it in, pull up, and it just comes out like that. Now go ahead and disconnect all the cables that are connected to the headlight. So there's a couple over here. This one is for my original Halo setup, so you guys won't have this. But just right there. And then I believe there's also the turn signal. And then there's 3 at the bottom right there. I don't know if you guys can see, but right there. So once you have all those cables out, the headlight will literally just slip out. You just want to make sure that you don't hit anything on the bottom when you're pulling it out. But it just slips out. It's pretty straightforward. So now I want to go ahead and repeat the same process for the other side. So now I have the headlight on my table. And this is the part where you want to take the lens off the headlight. So the proper way to do it is to put the headlight in an oven. Let it sit in the oven for around 10 minutes. So all the glue and adhesive around the headlight gets nice and soft. So you can just pull off the lens nice and easy. The only issue with that is that if you put the headlight in an oven, it's going to smell like absolute crap. So like I'm assuming most people would have an oven in the kitchen. So it's literally going to make your whole house smell like crap. So that's not the way I'm going to do it. I've seen some people get a box, like a cardboard box that's big enough to fit the headlight in, and just point the heat gun towards the inside of the box, but not obviously towards the headlight. Just so it heats up in there. It's kind of like a makeshift oven as well. You could also do that route as well. The only issue I'm facing right now is that I literally have no box around my house that's going to fit the headlight in it. So I'm just going to point my heat gun towards the seam where the lens sits, loosen it up, and just pull off the lens. And before you guys go ahead and take off the lens and heat it up, there's a Torx 15 right here. And there's also another one right there. I don't know if you guys can see it well, but right there. So as you guys could see, the lens is finally off. And I definitely took the more destructive route because I do plan on swapping this lens out anyway. So I'm not going to be reusing this one. So you just really want to be careful for these tabs over here, as one of mine actually did end up snapping as I tried pulling it up. So just be careful on that. You really just got to work with it, play with the heat. It also helps having like multiple flatheads that you can stick in there, leave it in there, move to the next, add another, create some gap, and you really just got to play with it until it just completely comes out. There's also some guide tabs that you have to be careful for, and just these clips, as I said earlier. And you also want to be careful for the heat gun, because if you're going to be using the same lens you had on before, the heat gun could actually start fading out the lens because it's like a clear plastic, so that could damage it. So just be careful with the heat gun as well if you're going to do this way. I would highly suggest, if you are going to reuse this lens, do the oven route, or just make the box and make like the homemade oven way, because this way is pretty destructive on the lens. So now what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to take the internals from the lens out. So just a Torx bit right here. And then there's a couple Torx over here. I'm not going to be using this one. All I need is the turn signal one. Okay, so I went ahead And I took out the internals of the headlight. This was an old one that I had from my last car that I had sitting around. So I'm just going to use this one. And that's from my car right now that I just pulled out. So basically, I'm just going to clean this up. I also took out the rings that sit in here, the silver ones. There's only 2, and these are just for all 4. Because basically, I'm going to clean these up and paint these black. So I'm in the process of cleaning up these housings. I already cleaned up this one. And basically, I'm only going to be painting the ring that sits on the inside, the big one. Because this one, I just kind of did a real quick test fit. And the angel eye doesn't sit too well if the ring sits over here. So I'm only going to be painting the inside one. And then I'm just going to leave this one without a ring. And here's what they look like painted. So I'm just painting the 2 bigger ones. And then here's how they look like shaded. I think I'm done in terms of layers because it's pretty dark right now. And I don't want it any darker. So I'm just letting them sit to dry. And then those rings, I'm also waiting for them to dry. So I'm just going to go back to the car and just start cleaning up those. All right, so now the rings are completely dry and I put them in. And I painted it a flat black, and as you guys can see, it actually matches the inside of the housing perfectly. So now I'm going to go ahead and place the angel eyes inside. So basically, I have this clear JB Weld epoxy that for the outer one, I'm going to place it on the ring over here. I'll stick it on like this. And then for this one, it won't really fit on the ring properly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue the bottom of this. Or more likely, I'm going to put the glue here and then stick it on like that. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to angle this a bit so it won't sit straight like the outer one will. But it should still look fine. All right, so I went ahead and I put back the headlight, or at least the front portion of the assembly. So as you see, I glued it from behind right there as well, just to keep it nice and secure. And then I zip tied the 2 cables like that, right behind it. And then this is what the final result looks like so far. It looks so much better. Now I'm just gonna do the same thing for the other headlight. And then slowly start putting everything back together. And also in terms of the cabling, I forgot to mention, I literally took a Sharpie and colored the 3 wires because I didn't want it to stick out like a sore thumb. As you can see, I just colored them in like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing for the other side as well. Okay, so now I have both lenses nice and ready. I brought the headlight housing back here. Basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just clean up this goop a little bit. You don't wanna take too much of it out because it also helps seal it a bit better. I just wanna clean up around the edges. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm going to grab the butyl, which is sitting right there. I'm going to place it around the length of where the lens sits into the housing. And then I'm going to warm it up and then stick the lens back on and then apply a lot of pressure. Don't use a hammer or anything. You just want to use hand power. Alright guys, so I just got the first one done. This is how it looks. Too bad it's pretty dark right now, but guys, this looks so much better than the original headlights. I can't wait to see them on the car. And the lenses, in terms of fitment, were actually really good. I was really impressed in terms of the fitment. I had literally no issues with the lenses whatsoever. Okay, so now that the headlight is put together, I routed the cables through the top. You can see from behind here. Once it's on the car, you won't even see that. And then I routed to this over here. And then on the door, I just drilled a hole and then routed these cables through. You also don't want to forget that there was a bolt here. And there was one more bolt right there. So after putting the whole headlight back together, one issue I found with this eBay lens is that the pre-drilled hole for this screw on the corner side is actually too small. So the screw won't go in. So what I basically did, I drilled a little pilot hole that made it a bit bigger, and then I put the 2 screws in. Alright guys, so now I have both headlights nice and ready to go back into the car. So for reinstallation, you basically just follow the exact same steps I just took for taking out the headlights to put them back in. In reverse, of course. So now I have the headlight in. I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly install one of my LED turn signals. So I have them right here. And then these are basically just direct replacements. So you just take the bulb out and then you put this one in. And basically how you put them in, you twist left and you pull out to remove it. And then it's basically the reverse to put it in. So you basically just put it in and then you turn right. It is kind of hard to find the spot where the actual bulb goes, but just play around with it, you'll find it. And to help you out, you could actually just, before the headlight's even in, you can pull it out a little bit, so it gives you more room to stick your hand in. But as of right now, both LED turn signals are installed. So now I'm going to begin the wiring for this. Alright guys, so now both headlights are in, turn signals are in. I reconnected all the cables for the headlights. Also put my washer fluid tank in. And then I also went ahead and connected my ground. So my ground is literally just connected to a bolt that sits on the frame of the car right there. So that's it for your ground. In terms of powering, remember how I told you guys there's two options? So for me, I'm actually gonna go ahead and power it through the fog lights because there will be moments where I don't want these on. So I'll show you guys how I powered it through there. So if you come from behind, this is where the fog light sits. And basically all you wanna do is just tap it into that yellow wire that has the brown stripe on it. That's the power for the fog light. The other one is the ground for it. All right, so for you guys who wanna power it through the fuse boxes inside the engine, all you have to do is grab your power cable, get the exposed end, and then you see where these two connection clips sit. That green cable right there, the green wire, all you literally want to do is grab your exposed cable and just stick it down inside that hole, and then you should get power. And I would also suggest running an inline 20 amp fuse just in case. So one bummer about this kit I realized is that two of these cables should be quite a bit longer than the other two, because basically if it sits on one side of the car, you're going to want to reach it to the other side of the car for these headlights. But for whatever reason, this kit never really thought that through. So basically, you're kind of forced to mount this somewhere exactly in the middle of the car so it can reach to both sides. And for the E46, that is kind of an issue because it is extremely crowded and finding a good spot to mount these is pretty difficult. So basically, the best way I'm trying to do it is I just mounted this right here, and there were already actually holes that were perfect for this to sit here. So I'm just going to mount that there. And then this, I'm just going to leave under the intake scoop. So it's just going to sit over top of it. And then I feel like it shouldn't really cause any issues with anything. So I'm just going to hook this up real quick and see if all the wiring matches up. So I quickly just went ahead and double checked my wiring, hooked up everything. And as you can see, they're working. These angel eyes look amazing. So now I'm just going to tidy everything up and then just put the intake scoop back on. All right, so I cleaned up all the cables. I put the intake scoop back on. And as you can see, this just barely makes it. Like, it's literally touching it, but it's in there nice. And the clearance is like next to nothing. Like, it's perfect. Those two holes right there were literally meant to be. And then even this setup looks a lot better than my last one, because everything just sits under here and it's all out the way. And it looks very clean. So now, we're done the installation. I'm just going to go back, reinstall everything else that I took out, and then we're good to go. Alright guys, so my phone ended up dying, but it's the next day now. And basically one thing I wanted to note is that the placement of this, I'm pretty sure it's a cooler, some sort of cooler. When it sits here, when you want to close the hood, it actually interferes with the hood latch. So basically, don't mount it here. The only other spot I could really find was over here in the middle. It's not the most ideal spot, but it's literally the only spot I could find that could actually fit it. And you can close the hood with no issues. So I just poked two holes, I zip tied it, and then just make sure the zip tie doesn't interfere with the fan at all. And yeah, other than that, the install is complete.
Cause I done seen the time go by for too many years now when the stars were aligned. Cause I done seen the time go by. Yeah, I done seen the time go by.
I've been waiting all my life, and it was right before my eyes. Watching all this time slip by, now I realize I've been waiting all my life, and it was right before my...
Alright guys, after watching those clips, what do you guys think? I think this mod just made the front end of the car look so much newer and so much more modernized, especially when you go ahead and pair it up with the carbon fiber fog light cover. The car's front end, especially if you're being like an 06, it just looks so good. And the install looks super clean too. And this is what it looks like when you're running it in just white, so when you're daily driving and you don't want any attention. It looks nice and clean, looks modern, and it just updates the car's front end so much. And this is what it looks like when the car's off and none of the lights are on. It just looks so good. Even when the car's off, it just looks really good. I think it was a really good idea to think out this side marker light. As the whole housing on the inside is black now, it just looks super clean. And combined with the brand new lens, the headlight literally looks brand new now. It looks like I bought a different set of headlights. Alright guys, so after watching all those clips, what do you guys think of the final result? Me personally, I think combined with the carbon fiber fog light covers and the new headlight setup, it's just such a good way to modernize your car's front end, especially for like an E46, like a mid-2000s car. The front end just looks so clean and so much more updated. And I'm honestly surprised why more people don't run the setup on their E46. But other than that, guys, that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or any comments, just leave them down below. I'll be more than happy to answer. And I also recently made a new Instagram page, so you guys can go ahead and follow that, as I do find it really cool connecting with you guys. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.